Hi there, and welcome to the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions. I'm so honored today to have Mr. Borres come and speak to us on hurricane preparedness in light of COVID. Before he begins, I wanted to say that this is the love project of the Sea Level Rise organization, which is a collaborative within the Institute dedicated to environmental change and education enhancement and awareness. And so this is the first of 4 series we'll have. We'll have them recorded so that if you can't make it, of course, we'd love for you to just share it with your community, wherever that is. And the second one will, of course, be on with Duke Energy on green economy jobs. The next one after that will be on beach erosion. And our final one will be on education, equity, and arts with Shine Mural Festival. With that, I'd like to take time to just say thank you in advance because we're in hurricane season and this is a really busy time for you to give us even 15 minutes of your time. So thank you. We look forward to any valuable information you have to share with us. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. My pleasure to be here. Let's see, I do have a little PowerPoint. Let me share my screen. Can you see that? Okay. All right, again, well, thank you. Hello. I appreciate being on the panel today. My name is Joe Borres, and I'm the operations manager here at Pinellas County Emergency Management. I'm also a 1986 St. Pete College grad. Go Titans. My emergency management director, my boss, Kathy Perkins, sends her regards and thanks you for delving into this timely topic, especially in light of Hurricane Laura. I've been involved with emergency management for over the past 21 years and with Pinellas County, and this certainly has been our busiest and most challenging year so far, even given the 2004 hurricane season. So I was asked to present on hurricane planning in times of COVID, but I think we should start by spending a few minutes looking back at the year that's been so far. And this what's been giving us our extra work for this particular season. Okay, so December 2019, the novel coronavirus COVID-19 was first encountered in Wuhan, China. We at Emergency Management started paying attention in January, having informal discussions on the what ifs. Emergency Management is in the what if business. We spend a lot of time making sure our plans are ready by asking, well, what if? And by February, we were meeting with our health partners, Department of Health, EMS, and the hospital system, establishing concepts of operations should this become an outbreak, a community outbreak, or worse. And of course, it evolved rapidly. And then on March 1st, Governor DeSantis declared a public health emergency here in the state of Florida. And a few weeks later, on March 11th, COVID-19 was declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. That was followed by the Federal National Emergency Declaration on March 13th. So already by mid-March, we had activated the EOC to a level 2, using a partial virtual activation, something new to us right off the bat. This was having just a few key staff in the EOC and the rest back at their offices. Later on, as the COVID cases grew rapidly, we went to a level 1 activation, but still a partial virtual activation. So a split folks, key staff in the EOC, then folks back at their offices. Today, we remain at a level 2 virtual activation, and we're still working COVID operations from infection control to the testing is the thing that we're doing a lot of right now. And managing our data, which I'll touch on in just a little bit. The pace of the EOC was frenetic from February through the month of May. There was so much to do and so many things, many new and unfamiliar to prepare for. While the EOC here in our offices is just a hallway away, just around the other corner here, we didn't return to our offices for 66 days. So we were in the EOC that entire time working at that pace. And it was like groundhog each day too. But the spin on that, The repeating thing was it was new, unsuspected challenge each day that would arise. It continually repeated it like a groundhog, so what was the new thing that was going to happen today, whether it's absent tracking, beach closures, many different things, a lot to do with the PPE really as well. So early on, a lot of time was spent trying to understand the virus's human and community impact and what policies matter to prevent or mitigate infection publicly within our healthcare facilities or internally within our workforce. From the beginning, the data became a very important factor for a wide variety of decisions on policies and actions. We established a data working group to help with this effort. You can see these data sets that we put together on our website at covid19.pinellascounty.org. My director recognized too that we needed help on a multitude of fronts that required subject matter experts to come together to solve, and in many cases, invent solutions to some complex problems. So we established 13 working groups, including the data working group. So we had a hospital system working group talking about their surge capacities, ventilator use, and a lot of things we had to learn for ourselves. EMS and fire related to transportation and the protection of the first responders and how they were going to handle these cases. Nursing homes, assisted living facility, and home health working groups, infection control, behavioral health for the community. Public information was huge. This was new to the public as well as it was to us as well, this COVID experience. The business working group was really fabulous. They came up with some unique, novel solutions when we were out of face masks, getting with different businesses that could create and make face masks by hand or with 3D printers and different techniques. At one point, reaching out to Busch Gardens and Universal to get raincoats and things like that when we thought we were running low on PPE for these our first line workers. We had a homeless support working group, a community well-being group. We had, unfortunately, a fatality management working group, which actually, from that, we surveyed all our funeral homes and everything, and now we actually understand what our decedent capacity is in Pinellas County. So that helps for other hazards, unfortunately, as well, but that, there's some silver linings in everything that we do, right? Community feeding, and even to this day, is still greatly needed. For all those that are underemployed and things like that, the need really grew. The school board stepped up and continued their feeding program for their students, even though schools were closed. And then we're still helping our community feeding partners make sure that they have enough supplies and can make outreach to those folks that need it most. We have a finance working group, and then our social distancing working group was really made up of a lot of our policy makers, and they've done a lot of work, and I'll touch on that in a minute. We also had a college working group. So Adam Colby from Ecker College leads that group and worked with St. Pete College, Bill Gray, and folks from USF as well too, and worked on, what does school reopening look like? What does school dormitory life look like? Working on those type of things and how we can get schools back open, colleges back open. School board worked on their stuff as well. And of course, I mentioned the data management working group. These working groups brought whole community partners together to lead efforts to identify issues before they became major problems as well. Finding alternate solutions to limited PPE supplies, that's personal protective equipment, keeping citizens fed, as I mentioned, and informed and with options for emotional support amongst a wide variety of issues each group faced in their respective areas. And, we all had pandemic plans, emergency management, Department of Health and stuff. But really, one of the sayings is no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So, our plans were well-founded, but, certainly some new things came of that. And one of that is the role of our executive policy group. They really worked extensively from the beginning. The policy group first requested a local state of emergency to the Board of County Commissioners on March 13th. Well, local state of emergencies only last 7 days. So for each week, for 26 weeks so far, they prepared justification for continuing the local state of emergency to present to the Board of County Commissioners. Matter of fact, the board just met this morning to pass for the next 7 days. They've also had to ask for and gain approval for over 17 county resolutions, orders, and a few ordinances related to COVID-19. We at Emergency Management don't have the power to, we can ask people to evacuate and do things like that, but we don't have the power to shut businesses down and require mask wearing and things like that. That really comes from the Board of County Commissioners. They're the leaders in those efforts, and they need justification and data to make those type of decisions. So the policy board really had to do some yeoman's work to keep them informed and have the right decisions for our community. And of course, they were either bringing us in alignment with the governor's orders to protect our citizens or enact the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act you may have heard about, to implement this for our own county, funding that we received from the federal government. And many times under great citizen scrutiny and pressure for all these things before the board. The citizens certainly had their say in a lot of these matters. And our own state of Florida, has issued 9 executive orders that required our response or analysis of its impact to our citizens. Just understanding when the governor shut down what businesses other than essential businesses took a lot of research for us to figure out what's an essential business or not. So luckily early on, the decision to start tracking data has helped guide and implement the policies that the policy group had to implement and discuss with the board. The face mask ordinance, whether you agree or not with wearing face mask ordinance, is a great example of this. June 24th, when the county mask resolution was passed, we were at 12% positivity rate for coronavirus. Today, we're at 3.7 positivity rate. So we can clearly see that masks have made a difference, and the data tells that story. One of the more important aspects of the COVID-19 EOC operations was our logistics section. Typically, our logistics section, works national disasters. We support public agencies and not-for-profits that manage our community's critical infrastructure. For COVID-19, we found ourselves in the PPE and medical equipment business for for-profit medical facilities. Now, this was essential for helping our frontline healthcare workers, but we found ourselves purchasing supplies by the millions of items. To date, our logistics section has purchased and received 6,630,000 items through county purchases, state deliveries, and even donations. It's completed over 3,382 missions, so individual missions that they've had to receive an order and then either make delivery or some other arrangements. They've delivered over 3,777,000 items to long-term healthcare facilities, hospitals, not-for-profits, and to our federal, state, and local government agencies that are within the county. So, many of our first responders still require PPE as well too, just not in medical facilities. They've done a great job, and they're stocking up and preparing for, remember, we're in the what-if business, for flu and COVID season this late fall. So we want to make sure that we don't have any shortfalls and we have at least a good 90-day supply to carry us through the season and then hopefully on and past a vaccine, right? That's what we're all hoping for. Excuse me. So in May, after months of our team working strictly on COVID-19, Kathy said we need to get back to hurricane planning. Our entire team was dedicated to COVID. Now, if you've seen already, it's been a busy hurricane season. The forecast called for 13 to 19 storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, with 3 to 6 being major hurricanes at that. And Hurricane Laura just became our first major landfalling hurricane. And as you can see, I deployed to Michael, and strangely looking at the images first out of Louisiana, it's very reminiscent of the type of damage that we can expect to see, that we saw at Mexico Beach for sure. So what have we done for hurricane season with the addition of COVID-19? Well, first, luckily we've been living it for the last few months. We've had to keep in mind all the best practices and CDC guidance for COVID. That's social distancing, hand washing, disinfecting, whether you're disinfecting your hands or disinfecting your work unit with wipes and things like that, and now mask wearing, right? And amongst some other techniques. So over this past winter, we're always preparing for hurricane season. So this past winter, we assessed all of our school shelters. So we used the Pinellas County School Board, about 30 of their schools for shelters. We've assessed them for the capacity and suitability. This was very beneficial to our shelter program manager. She became very familiar with each of our sites and had mapped out our capacity for every room that we could utilize. We were very happy with how the capacity numbers were looking for a regular hurricane season, right? A non-COVID season. We were able to up our shelter space per person to 20 square feet through a category 4 and 15 square feet to category 5. So that's much better than we were before. We did this in analysis. So 20 square feet is the preferred standard for general population shelters and 40 square feet for special needs. Well, then COVID happened, right? So we need to start planning for social distancing, having supply of masks for the sheltered, PPE for our shelter workers, temperature screening at the door, extra cleaning services. There was already cleaning services because of how cramped, shelters could be, but now, they had to do disinfecting in the restrooms and elsewhere and all the places that people touch with their hands. And then how to serve meals non-congregate style. So, we'd serve meals to the shelterees in the cafeteria, and folks would go in through the line, be able to sit and talk and then have their meal, go back to their shelter space. But now, we can't do that. We have to, create some spacing for that, or serve them in clamshells, to-go boxes so that they go back and keep their social distancing, right? So we also had to create space or room for COVID positive or suspected cases, and maybe even a non-mask wearing room for those not willing to comply to avoid any tensions, right? We don't want to start any arguments in the shelters or get into any debates about this, but we need to remember the what if business, we need to take all these things into consideration, right? Folks could show up fine and could develop, symptoms, and we want to isolate them from others. We also looked at rapid testing, right? That's the golden nugget there. If we had rapid testing, we think we have an agreement to add this to our special needs shelters with the healthcare agency, using some of those Abbott testing. That could help greatly, right? Do we really need to isolate this person, or could they remain with their family members? So we're looking at that. We're also looking at what we can do to provide as much spacing. So 6 feet between individuals and family units as they would come into a shelter. So we developed a plan how we could divvy up this space. For an individual, so one person, so we look back at all our shelter data to see how many folks of 1, groups of 2, groups of 3, 4 come to a shelter, and we could look at those groupings, right? Because either folks come with a caregiver, or they come with their children or parents and things like that. So an individual would get 60 square feet. So that's the normal, again, is 20 square feet. And you say, well, why'd you go to 60 square feet? Well, it was looking at the spacing in a room. It was better to look at the spacing from a square footage perspective, so that when they're there in their particular 60 square feet, and if you had another 60 square feet, that worked out to about 6 feet spacing from head to head for each person in there. And this way, it was easier for the shelter managers too to manage something like that. So families up to 3, may share 2 60 square feet spaces, and this way they have enough space, because we know they're going to come in family units and things like that. So we seem to have it worked out, and I think I have an example of that in just a second here. Our goal, again, is to maximize our utilization, our spacing, while keeping the distance between non-household groups. And here's what it looks like here. It's sort of like Tetris, if you will. So, the green rugs are, the 60 square feet, and you can see the spacing in between. They need a little walkway too, but you take that math into consideration. So everybody's head, if you will, is 6 feet from someone else. And then we group family units together. They don't really need 60 square feet each, right? But 60 and 60 together, the 120 square feet, actually a family of 3 or 2 fit very nicely. And some may bring their own beddings and things like that. So it accommodates that well. You could have them go portrait style or landscape style. So sort of like if you were playing Tetris, if you will, a shelter manager could look at that. And we printed these signs as well so that those coming to shelter could see our intent and help self-regulate themselves as well too, right? Shelter workers are a precious commodity. We don't have that many to have everybody in each room, but we have floaters that go to the rooms and make sure that folks are laying themselves out like this in an appropriate fashion, and they'll end up with the appropriate space as well. And of course, another thing we're going to do, we'll also open more shelters than we normally would for evacuation levels A through C. So normally, an A level evacuation, maybe 6 or 7 shelters, 3 special needs, 3 pet friendly, and 1 more. Now, because we need the extra spacing, we're going to probably have to open up a lot more shelters for that. And for our evacuation levels D and E, the higher levels, well, we would have to open up all of them up anyway. So we're going to run a little bit of a deficit. God help us, we have a Laura coming at us. We can get the folks in there. We just don't know if we'll be able to maintain the appropriate spacing as well too. But hey, storm surge kills. COVID, yeah, you may get it. I think you should take your chances away from, run from the water, and we'll do our best to keep everybody safe in the shelters and free of COVID. So other changes include, as I mentioned, instead of eating in the school cafeteria congregate style, the meals will be served as meals to go, taken back to their allocated space. Where possible, in the smaller shelters, we'll serve the meals in each room rather than have folks walk around. Then we're going to be cleaning a lot more in the bathrooms and disinfecting as much as possible. And a little bit, we're actually concerned that folks won't evacuate to come to shelters due to COVID. Some citizen surveys that we've been participated in have indicated this. We still insist that if you're ordered to evacuate and have no other place to go, and we prefer you go with family or friends or a hotel, we have these shelters available for folks. And just remember, shelters, as you can see from the image, are a life raft and not a cruise ship. But you're only there for that time that the storm's passing over, and then hopefully, we're going to clear the roads and get everybody back as home as swiftly as possible. When we order an evacuation, it isn't just for regular healthy citizens that are included in our order. There are many citizens who we classify as special needs clients due to their ability to remain at home using durable medical equipment such as oxygenators, monitors, and suction pumps. These folks have comorbidities that are complicated by an infection with COVID. There is also many healthcare facilities such as hospitals, assisted living, school, nursing home that are in evacuation zones and would need to go to sister facilities outside of the evacuation area. So we've had to take those things into consideration as well too at our special needs shelters and what's going on with our healthcare facilities. Healthcare facilities are required by statute to have plans and agreements to evacuate to another facility. But what if that facility has COVID? Or what if the facility that needs to evacuate has COVID patients? How are they going to manage that and make that work? Or do we need to find alternate space for these facilities? They're also required to have the right transportation as well too. So we need to look at that. Having transportation, maintaining social distance, and cleaning the buses between trips as well too. So we've put a lot of planning into that as well too, looking at that. And one of the things that we were looking at strongly to help us in this area is how do we keep hurricane evacuations to a minimum so that all these vulnerable populations can remain at home or in their healthcare facilities safely from storm surge, right? So the answer to that, as I mentioned earlier, is actually better data, right? Sure, we've had, when you look at our hurricane evacuation zones that we've created today, they're from 2010, slightly updated in 2016. Those were from what's called the slosh model, the sea, lake, and overland surges for hurricanes. But those were looking at storms that came from all directions, of all categories, and different parameters. And that was great because this way, especially for us, if you look at Pinellas County, we're a peninsula on a peninsula surrounded by water. So we knew from doing that modeling and looking at that we were at least evacuating everybody that needed to evacuate. Could we be evacuating a little more than we needed to for each one of those? Yes, but at least we knew we were at a warm, comfortable situation and that we were going to get those out of harm's way, right? Run from the water, hide from the wind. But as with everything, the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center kept refining their processes, kept refining the slosh model itself. And the slosh model used a thing called the basin to start their programmatic runs, they're called. So they created a new basin that runs from Markham Island all the way to Mobile, Alabama for our coast of Florida. So on July 2nd, right in the middle of coronavirus, we received this new surge basin data, and we are using what we call the directional meows now. Rather than those maximums that we're using before, we're actually just using the maximum envelopes of water for each direction that the storm is approaching us. And you would be amazed at how much difference that makes. So, if you look at what happened in Louisiana, that storm was heading straight at them, right? So a north approaching storm, the front center and the right quadrant where all the storm surge is, that's their worst case scenario. So for us being on the West Coast like this, obviously the angle of approach can vary greatly. They can come out of the Yucatan Peninsula and head east right at us. And then again, that right quadrant, they can come from the Atlantic, swing up around what we were worried about with Laura, swing up and around Cuba and then attack us from a northeast, north type of approach, right? And then of course they can cut across the state of Florida, which we call exiting. So you either have landfalling, you either have paralleling, or you have exiting approaches of these storms. So looking at these meows or these new storm surge analysis that the Hurricane Center provided to us, we're now able to look at different storms with light speed, light category, and direction. And they make quite a difference as well. An exiting storm, well, you remember Irma, when Irma went through, it really pushed water outside. So it went up the center of the state, and the winds are counterclockwise. It actually pushed water out of our state or out of our bays and things like that. Well, that same storm, Irma, just offshore heading north, it's going to push water up into the bay. So now we can look at that. So we looked at Laura coming at us early on when we were in the 5-day cone and looking at the tropical storm or even category 1 and 3 direction with the northwest direction and things like that. The one we looked at for Cat 1 northwest, it would have been about normally 11 to 17 healthcare facilities that may have had to evacuate. But when we look at those directionals and that storm surge, actually only 1 or 2 facilities had water, but only had water on their property, right? So we can look at the above ground depth of the water on those particular properties, and we could have safely let those folks remain in place rather than asking them to evacuate. So these files are really great. They came at a good time, but they came at a tough time when we're busy with other things, but we're working through them. Will they lead to some changes in our evacuation zones later on? Maybe we need some time to digest this and look at these overlays and see, maybe we could have a zone A1 and a zone A2. Maybe we can make some other changes in the northern part of the county. So we need to look at that. We need some more time. And the most important thing with evacuations is really not so much that analysis, but it's how you message it to the public, right? So we're working with our marketing and communication, who act as our PIO when we're activated. What does that messaging look like? So how we do our zones and everything will really tie hand in hand with how we do our messaging. Right now we ask, do you know your zone, right? So it's pretty straightforward. So we like to keep that, but maybe we have to do something a little different so we can be more pliable with this new data that we have from the Hurricane Center and working with them. So that's evacuation zones, and again, we're working on that, and And we have that, and we have the ability today to do that analysis too as any storms approaching. We're just going to have to work out the messaging part. So EOC changes. So I touched on that a little bit, for the COVID environment. I certainly didn't need damage assessment in and some of the critical infrastructure folks in for COVID as much as I need some mass care and the health and medical group in. So looking at the EOC, we looked at our EOC is made up of all the ESFs and the supporting agencies that came up, that come into the EOC. We have a spot for everybody. But this time we looked at them pre and post landfall impact. So who do we need pre-landfall? Our sheltering, our transportation folks, things like that. I don't need damage assessment. I don't really need Duke at first in, they're really a post-impact type of thing. And then, who do I need post-impact and having them come in? And then looking even, our biggest operation is our county information center. They fit 32 people in that room plus 2 supervisors, and they're packed in there. And it's a good thing because they're all able to keep on the same talking points and things like that. But, we just can't do that safely and having that many people in there. So we have to go to every other station. So we can get about 16 in there safely, if you will. We've added some air filtering portable units in there as well too. But we've looked at remote technology. So as well as everybody could be at home and using VPN and the internet, or even back at their offices safely, they can remote into what's called the ACD line so that they can be part of the call center, but not actually in the call center. And we've added an active attendant feature to our call line too. So when people call, they can pick 1, 2, or you want to know about sandbags, you want to know about sheltering. We can provide them some information and hopefully answer their questions. And if not, a citizen assistant is always available by pressing 0 if somebody really needs to talk to somebody. So that's one of the ways that we've trying to do it for the EOC is how many people and the right people working virtually, and those that really need to be in-house for that situational awareness and common operating picture. We're certainly going to do the entry screening. Everybody's going to be required to wear a mask, social distancing, feeding had to change as well too. Before you could go down buffet style, get your meal and congregate and things like that. Now they're going to be served just like at the shelters in a clamshell or to go. Go back to your desk and eat, or if the weather's still well, you can go outside and do different things. Our struggle really comes in with bunking. So we have a fairly large facility, but we don't have a lot of room for bunking. So we take conference rooms and training rooms and turn them into bunking. We take their equipment out, put it into some storage, and then our bunks are actually bunk beds, so 2, one stacked on top of the other. Well, we certainly can't do that. So now we're just using singles. So we were able to lay it out so that everybody will have to sleep with their head facing, one way, so that every head is 6 feet from each other head, right? Is the best we could do. So we're about a little less than half capacity than we normally would. Well, we're going to have a little less than half in the EOC as it is, except in this building, the 911 center is up on the 3rd floor, and they need to go to 2 shifts as well too. Because really what we're looking at is that lockdown period. So there's a period of time when a storm's approaching that everybody needs to be in house, right? I can send people home, 5 days, 3 days out. But when that storm's going overhead and it's not safe to go anywhere, we really need everybody in the house for response, right? I can't have people working 24-hour days or 24 hours each day. They need their break. So you need the first shift, second shift. They need to be in house to relieve each other and to keep the momentum and working on the things that they're doing. Because, you go from, sheltering, transportation, getting everybody where they need to be, and that ends the evacuation period. Then you have that lockdown period where the storm is coming overhead, and you quickly go from sheltering to what is your impact assessment? Where do we need to go search and rescue? Where do we need to go help folks, the injured? Where do we need to cordon off areas where, citizens shouldn't be, things like that because of damages. You quickly rock into that, as you get into your daylight hours, very much what Louisiana is doing right now today. And then, we also have teams that come in and help for certain aspects of what we're doing as well too. So having a safe place for them to come in and feed them. We'll have some more tenting and things that I've looked at. We have a base camp contract, and maybe we'll set some things up outside. So we've had to think about all those things, having the right people here, the right technology as well too. We have a lot of communications equipment. We go from, having regular landline phones. We're using, my team has the FirstNet phones that have come out of late from AT&T that have the different bandwidth. And they have a lot of great mobile capability to bring in these things called cows and different things that they could set up so that we can keep communications going. We have the 800 megahertz radios, and we have ham operators too. We have a very robust ham operating team, group, volunteers. We put one in each shelter. So they just need a little bit of power and an antenna, and they can talk, and we're very grateful for them. So we can make use of those post-impact as well too. So a lot of virtual, a lot of mixing and using other facilities where folks can be. We hope our RT can keep our VoIP phones up and things like that, so that folks can go back. If their buildings are fine, they can work out of. Hopefully they can go into different buildings that the county owns and keep working. Our training as well too, it's gone to virtual, as well as our outreach. It works fairly well for most things, but some things need that just-in-time training. So we're trying to create those materials as well too, so we can put that into people's hands. You have a lot of volunteers that come, or folks that you're expecting that can't show up or replace with other folks. So you got to be prepared for that type of training to get folks to do the particular task that you've asked them to do. So I got some questions for you before you hit me up with some questions. And, one of them is, it's funny. I was thinking, Microsoft bought Skype, and I was like, what happened to Skype? Skype was positioned to be the virtual platform giant, and all of a sudden Zoom and Teams pass it by. We had a very busy day, and our IT person came and goes, hey, I just installed Teams on your laptop and all that. I'm like, oh my God, I got to learn a new application, right? But Teams has been a lifesaver and a great tool for us to communicate, to now ping someone instantly, and I feel sorry for the folks that added it to their phone. You can hit them up right away. And Zoom, that we're the platform we're on today. And I know Google's come out with something as well too, but certainly Zoom and Teams have been a lifesaver in this COVID environment, and really it changed the dynamic of working. But you should recognize, for all of us, and it's a sad thing, not necessarily a great thing, but we're living through a historical time right now, right? For commercial market changes and social change. So I'm wondering, I have a few things that I've noticed myself that have certainly changed and will forever remain changed. But I'd like to know, what do you think are the most significant changes so far, or will be? Just curious of what the audience thinks. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of a Q&A, and I wanted to say thank you so much for giving us your time, really, in this, as you noted, historical time period. You said so much, and I guess what I'd first say to you is, how do you reach people when every year we know we live in Florida and we're going to have this issue? And it seems like every year we're having the same conversation with the same, with the vulnerable population and the not vulnerable population. But now you have this extra layer. While you were talking, I actually got on your website. It is a strong resource of information. But the issue that we have to be realistic about is that people are not coming to get the information. And so, of course, they wait, and then we stress the entire system. How do you think that we could do a better job of reaching out to the community to let them know about these resources? Because our vulnerable people may not watch this Zoom, in a time period where people are over fatigued by virtual programs. It's a lot to get this information out to them. So what is your best recommendation about how the county is going to be responsive? Because I think the county has done an outstanding job of doing the research and providing the plan that we need to be safe. But how do you think we're going to get this out to the people?
No, that's a great question. You're right. For us, one of the great things we do is the home show. You say, well, the home show, well, we get like 900 people come by our little table there who are new to the county, right? So there's people coming and going to the county all the time that we have to deal with. And yeah, we've always traditionally, you go out and do presentations and things like that. But something that we started here at this department, FEMA came up with the concept of the whole community. So we have a whole community program here, led by a lead and an assistant specialist. And we go out and try to reach out to those networks. So the faith-based network, the mobile home parks and those networks, and try to get with those type of partners that can expand and help our reach go out to the citizens and things like that, the homeowners associations, different things like that, and use and partner with them in a way. Now that they see there's someone that they can always go back to and have a contact with and work with them. The insurance industry is another one as well too, and reach those networks that can help expand our capacity and capability to reach all the citizens as well too. And you have your traditional social media and outreaches and things like that. A little tougher now in COVID, at least for now. But it's that whole community and reaching out to those networks. It's a new strategy we've been doing, and we've seen some great things already with that. We've actually engaged, some of the faith-based and some of our operational considerations. So, post-impact, there's always volunteers that want to come and help. And same thing with the churches, and they always have volunteers. So connecting those dots right there has really augmented our ability for helping what we call our BRC, our Volunteer Reception Center, but working with those churches, they're helping us fulfill that mission as well too. So seeing some great things like that, but it's about reaching networks that can expand our capabilities is what we're working on now and seeing great results from.
You mentioned masks, and you mentioned, controversy surrounding them, and, you provided data, of course, that supported that the numbers went down with the use of them. How do you plan to continue to push that campaign in light of some of the political challenges we face with it? And particularly, how do you plan to disseminate these types of resources to people who don't have access? You do see a lot of people just wearing random garments as masks. And, I know that's hard I know the county can't provide all of our needs, but I'm just wondering how you plan to address that, particularly in a hurricane, when we can be in a space where that could be quite challenging for people.
That's a great question, and something that we've actually have worked on, and it's a multi-pronged approach, right? So one, yes, unfortunately, there needed to be an ordinance and a rule to wear the mask, right? When you're out, at least when you're amongst the public, right? You don't want to wear it at the beach or out anywhere else, that's fine. But when you're amongst others, you need to be wearing the mask. And again, the data has proven that that's been effective. And not just in our community, but other communities. And so, you do this, and, the onus is on us a little bit to help do that. So we were able to get some masks from the Health and Human Services, the Federal Health and Human Services Agency, and we distributed, I want to say, and sorry, I didn't look this up, I want to say we distributed almost 600,000 masks to date so far. And then mentioned the whole community partners as well, too. They're working with a lot of folks were sewing them and making them as well too. So we had donation sites for the masks at these network locations, and people could donate them, and then we were distributing them out as well to other folks as well too. Then we were providing them to the food banks as well too. So when people came through the food bank line, they could get a mask. So we have a lot of those little projects going on like that, making just points of distribution, acquiring masks. And then, we're going to put people in shelters. Yes, we're asking people to bring disinfectant, hand washing, and their own mask, but we got to assume that maybe they can't provide that for themselves. So we went out and purchased enough masks to have for our shelterees. make sure we have enough masks for our healthcare facilities. Should they have, we expect them to buy their own PPE and things like that, but we're making sure that we have enough for them as well. So multi-prong approach, working with the citizenry, networks, community faith-based groups, things like that. And wherever we can acquire them, distributing them out to those that are in most need.
Thank you. That's important because I know part of what we try to do is discuss equity challenges, and with the 5 poverty pockets in the county that have been identified,
Right.
I know that it's more of a challenge every time we have hurricane preparedness and issues. We're getting towards the end, so I wanted to make sure that I ask one final question regarding hurricane preparedness in our county. If people don't have a plan, and basically, I think that our county in general and all the businesses have risen quickly, and we don't have a lot of the challenges that many other counties have. But we also haven't been hit. We've dodged a bullet almost every time. So we'll do these things and we'll advertise and we'll try to force people to come and understand the challenges. And unfortunately, it's hit once again or headed towards Louisiana. But our percentage just might run out. So if people need to get quick information, is there an app? Is there a way to access information with the county in a method that's not traditional? Because as you said, new platforms are popping up all the time. And I know myself, I send you all's data out to family members and friends who are not dialed into this type of information. And also want to know if you guys have any plan to do in a campaign on safety and COVID as we approach the end of the hurricane season, which I think is November 30th. I always get those dates right, but I think it's November 30th.
Yeah, the hurricane season ends November 30th. So yeah, we've been reaching out, again, the whole community folks, our preparedness and education outreach groups as well too. So they've been reaching out as much as they can. They've met with the mobile home group, a lot of those citizens, right? Because they're very vulnerable where they live in those type of residential units. And then any other groups that we can meet with, the beach communities, the chambers of commerces and things like that, trying to outreach, again, leveraging those networks and individuals as well too. I would answer your question several ways because folks worry about that. So could somebody miss our message? So the first thing that you ask is like, well, they don't have a plan. And it's like, of all the things we ask for is for people just to have a plan. We're not trying to scare anybody or anything like that, but you see hurricanes happen. It's a real thing. They help themselves a little bit. So when someone sees a hurricane like Laura coming at them, they take notice. So what are all those different things that we do? Well, we know cell phones are very popular. So we have a mobile app, and even in that app, you turn on your location services, it'll tell you if you're in or out of the 5-day cone and if you're in the evacuation zone. And it has a nice checklist in there that you can check things off that if you've for the 5-day, 3-day cone and things like that for your preparedness. We have a lot of stuff on our website. We have our hurricane guides that we still produce. People like to have paper in their hand to read. Certainly our education and outreach. And those are the traditional things that we're doing that we still use the tools today, right? And then we go out to the home show. I think the home show is one of our best things that we do because just so many new people to the county that show up at those home shows. But I would assure you, and this is what I tell my family and friends, is that I can reach you. So I'm never going to leave anybody behind in the county. So how can we do that? So I have several methods. So we have what's called Alert Pinellas. We ask people to sign up for Alert Pinellas, and you can put up to 5 different locations there. So if you want to know your kid's school location, if anything's happening there, your home, your business, you can put those addresses in there. And we can geo-target messaging. Just something happens. So maybe there's a hazmat spill or something like that. We need to send you messaging. That is a great tool to sign up for, and what we call opt-in. So we can text you, email you, and call you and say, hey, this is what's happening. And that's the only time we would use that. We're not going to tell you about the chili cook-off or things like that. We're going to send you these pertinent messages. So we asked everybody to sign up for Alert Pinellas. In absence of that, if you don't, I still have everybody in the county's landline phone number. I could call everybody that has a landline. We buy that data just like any other service would, and we put that in our Alert Pinellas, and we could send messages that way. The other thing we could do too is the integrated public addressing and warning system. I could hit every single cell phone in the county, and we did it a couple times during COVID and got great response when we were talking about voters. But we could send messages that way. And I know if you're not even a county resident, you're traveling through our county, you're going to get our message. So when we did that during Irma, we could send, hey, the evacuation has started, hey, the evacuation has ended, you should be at your safe place. So we can reach people that way. And that same messaging system goes out, that scroll you see through the TV as well too. We send that message, and the TV broadcasters, they're required to put that there if they agree with the message. There's some leeway there, but they're to scroll that as well too. And of course, we work with our local media partners as well too. We make space for them here in the OC, and we let them embed with us. So we have multiple messages to ensure when it becomes life safety, I can hit those cell phones and, and make them ring and call everybody. And then, the local jurisdictions, some, drive up and down with their fire trucks on and blast the announcements as well too about the evacuation. So we don't do that as much, but some still do that. So, that's the type of thing that if we need to, we can make happen, and to make sure that for life safety, that people get the message that something harm is coming their way and to take protective action.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your presentation and your time during this busy season. I have to say also a personal thanks to our president, Dr. Tanja Williams, who led us through the last hurricane season, which was quite challenging on our student community. And it took us a while, our students, I should say, to get back to some level of normalcy. And so now with COVID and her leading us again through another challenging time, it's nice to know that, we have a strong county to support us with these resources when we, as educators and as people associated with the college, try to reach out one by one to make sure that everyone is supported and they have what they need. So thank you so much for your time today. We will be posting this to make sure that your message is received to a broader audience. And we can't thank you enough for being the first of our educational series to learn more about how the environment impacts us, and more importantly, the solutions we're offering to help people know what to do in times of crisis. And with that, I'm going to end our program, and we're going to have a video that talks a little bit about the importance of ISPS as we embark on this new season in our new session. Thank you again, Joe. It was a pleasure working with you.
Bye-bye.
Civic engagement is so important, not only to St. Petersburg College, but to the benefit of our entire community. What we hope to do at St. Petersburg College, especially in the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions, our goal is to be the catalyst for change. We want to be the convener, the individuals who pull everybody together to talk about a common cause and a plan, to build the mission and the strategy, to move forward and make this county, this state, and our world a better place to live, learn, and play.